Hello and welcome to the follow-on Fox Cricket's podcast. Delighted to be joined today by Brian Lara, who played 131 tests for his country and also 299 ODIs, averaged 52.88 in test cricket, made 34 centuries, some of them particularly dazzling, and averaged 40.48 in ODIs with 19 centuries. He's a Fox Cricket expert here to join us throughout the summer with Australia playing the West Indies. Thanks so much for your time, Brian. It's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to my little month and stint with Fox, and I'm sure maybe the West Indies might spring a few surprises, but let's see.
Well, I'm certainly hoping so. It was a lively first sort of 3 tests against Pakistan, and let's hope that it continues to be great, engaging cricket. We're going to touch on a few different elements of the sport today, some of your career, and then touch on a couple of the hot button topics. And then perhaps at the end, we'll discuss the trickiest bowlers that you faced during your career. Not necessarily the best bowlers, but those who gave you the most difficulty. But firstly, let's start, Brian. And as I said, you're a member of the most experienced and diverse Fox Cricket commentary lineup we've ever had. So it's great to have you on. As a batsman, with all those centuries, which one is the fondest? Is it the 501 that you made for your county at Edgbaston? Is it the 400 not out against England? Or where does the 277 versus Australia, which I think was your first Test century, sit? Which of those 3 are your favourites, or is there another one that you'd prefer to identify?
Well, I've been asked that question a lot of times. I think, obviously, I appreciate all the milestones that I was able to achieve through my career. Having a couple world records, first class record, test record is great achievements, and as I said, it's very humbly, I'm very thankful to have done those things. But for me, there are a couple. I mean, it's a difficult question because scoring 277 as your first Test 100 in Sydney, the significance of it in the series at the time, it will be very, very high up there. But there was a watershed moment in my career. It came in 1999. Just to the back end of 98, we toured South Africa and lost all 5 Test matches. And we were heading home to face the mighty Australians, the #1 team in the world. And, in a 4 Test match series with a pretty fragile West Indies team. And we lost the first Test match quite emphatically in Trinidad, being bowled out for 51 in the last innings. And we then went to Jamaica. And being put on a probation as a captain, it sort of felt that that's going to be the end. My 213 at Sabina Park against Australia will rate for me as maybe one of the innings that really showed my true character as a cricketer and my inner strength to be able to come out of that situation and perform the way that I did.
When you're sitting there ahead of that innings and you talk about the external pressure, or before any of your beginnings, what was the process that you went through before you were going out to bat? Did you have to put aside the captaincy thoughts? Did you put aside the negativity? How did you prepare in that last, say, 10 minutes or so before you went out to play these big innings?
Well, I'm a sort of a strange individual. Negativity and these things actually arouse my my willingness to perform and make me even stronger. So these things I sort of embrace. You're walking out to bat, there's 60, 70,000 people at the MCG or the SCG. I think that sort of atmosphere really gets me going. So, it was on my mind, and I just felt at that point in Jamaica that it'll be nice to really show them what you are capable of. And I remained very focused. So I was very lucky to be mentally strong, and embracing negativity was actually a very positive thing for me.
Your 400 in Antigua, Matthew Hayden, I believe, had surpassed or had set a new record not too long before, and he was obviously of your vintage. You would have gone up against a big left-hander from Queensland quite a few times. But that 400 against England, how special was that?
That's extremely special. Um, it came on the back of being down in the series 3-0 with one test match to go. And I don't think the West Indies were ever whitewashed in the Caribbean by England. And we faced that possibility heading into the final test match. I always ask the question if anybody knows or knew how much runs I had in the three previous test matches. I had 100 runs in 6 innings. So to say that I planned to score 400, but I saw it coming. I think that is not true. I was sort of just holding on to a little bit of form that I came off with in the third test match, getting I think 13 both innings, and I felt that I was getting there. And Antigua 10 years later, the same opposition. Um, I always mention that Nasser Hussain and Graham Thorpe were the only two players to have experienced, both scores. And I remember them saying, "We don't ever want to see you bat again. 775 runs out once. We have had enough of you." But yeah, it was a very significant innings in my career. From the fact that being able to revisit, that sort of score and getting to triple hundred for the second time, age 34. And just 6 months after the record was broken by Matthew Hayden. So I feel there's a bit of destiny in that more than anything else. And privileged to have had the record back.
This works probably as a good segue, but Fox Cricket on KO Sports is the home of cricket and the only place to watch every ball this summer in Australia, which takes me to my next question. Do you know if anyone watched every single ball you faced when you made that 501 at Edgbaston for Warwickshire against Durham? Did you know if anyone was there for the entirety of the innings?
Not at all, other than the players, the scorers, the groundsmen. But I'm sure that when you play cricket in England, there are people that get to the cricket ground every single day that they could. And that innings was split between two cricket games. It was the 4-day game that was going on, and we took a break on Sunday to play a Sunday league, and then we resumed action in the 4-day game on the Monday. And I think I remember walking out to bat, and there was not a lot of people at Edgbaston at 10 a.m. in the morning. But the crowd grew as the innings grew, the crowd grew, and by 4 p.m., I think memberships and the gates were open, and it was an enjoyable experience. But I can't answer your question with any confirmation.
Just as we're talking about some of the grounds you played at, I mean, it just seems a fabulous place to watch cricket and to go, and I'm sure it is to play. And the SCG is a wonderful venue. Which is your favourite? What was the favourite venue that you during your career? Where did you really love to go out and bat?
I think my number one venue is definitely the Adelaide Oval. Obviously, over the years, it has changed. Obviously, with the amount of people that are coming out to watch cricket, and I believe also it might be Australian rules or rugby
Yes,
ground as well.
Australian rules.
Yeah. So, but I don't think it has lost its picturesque, feel about it. When I played, of course, you can see it in the church. It was just an amazing experience playing at Adelaide. Newlands will be my second venue with the tabletop mountains in the background. Again, fabulous. And everyone will have Lords as their number one, but Lords would be number three for me.
One of 11 children growing up as a boy, and I think you amassed a lot of runs at school, etc. But could you have ever imagined that you would win the the Spotty, basically the overseas sports personality of the year for the BBC, but then later earn an Order of Australia for your services to cricket to both the West Indies who you represented with such distinction, but also be so well received in Australia to receive the Gong, the Order of Australia?
Well, first of all, I didn't know anything about the BBC International Award until I was told that, I was a recipient of it back in 1994. But, such a privilege. When you look at the names that, on that honor board, soccer players, Muhammad Ali is a boxer. I think I got there before Michael Jordan. I'm not sure, but at the end of the day, Usain Bolt is someone who has sort of commanded that stage for sort of that period in his life. But it's such a great honor to be recognized not just at home but abroad. And the Australian Order of Merit, the Australian medal or award, again, is something that I feel very privileged about. I have this amazing relationship with Australia. First time I arrived in Australia was 1988 for the Youth World Cup. And since then, I always I fell in love with the place, first of all. You would know by now, my daughter's name is Sydney. And just every time I have the opportunity to come back to Australia, I grabbed at that opportunity and I came back.
Just one, given you played so much Test cricket and so much ODI, would you have loved to have played T20? And would you have fashioned your style any differently?
First of all, not to the sacrifice of Test cricket or the amount of Test cricket that I played. A couple questions, I've been asked, would I have liked to play in the halcyon days of the West Indies in the 70s and 80s? And I keep saying no. My period was in the 90s. Yes, it was the decline of West Indies cricket during that period. But I thought I played a significant part in trying to ensure that, West Indies cricket stayed afloat. So I appreciate my 17 years and the time it came. And obviously the second question is, what about that T20 version of the game? I mean, I totally welcome it. I think it's something that cricket definitely needed at the time. And yes, a lot of nations and players are moving towards that form of the game. And quite rightly, it is a money spinner. But if I would have changed my game, I don't think that I would have had to. I felt that I was always a very aggressive player. For me, attack was number one priority, and then defense came in. So I felt that I would have adapted quite easily in the T20 version of the game.
Well, it's probably a good way to segue into a couple of pressing topics that are out and about at the moment. So we're joined by Fox cricket expert Brian Lara on the follow-on. The state of play in the West Indies cricket and the squad that has come out for this 2 Test series against Australia. How do you assess the team, and who should we be looking out for from the West Indies in terms of making an impact? We had Pakistan paceman Amir Jamal was a debutant who bombed with great distinction through the 3 Test series just completed, taking 18 wickets. Who should we look out for from the West Indies? Who can bob up and really make a statement on this trip?
Well, first of all, in terms of the state of West Indies cricket, I will always maintain that talent-wise, we do produce talent every single time. We churn out the talent. I believe getting that talent ready for international cricket, say 30, 40 years ago, it was quite easy, as much easier then than now. The technology that is we see in the game, how easy it is for opposition to have information on players. So you need to be a step ahead all the time. And I feel that we're a little bit slow in that aspect of getting our players mature enough and ready enough to combat the world. What's going to happen in the 2 Test matches is going to be tough. But like how I felt 14 months ago when we took Australia to the 5th day in Perth, it's the same way I feel. If we can take Australia to 5 days in Test cricket, you never know what can happen. You can actually be on the front foot. But even if it turns out to being a defeat, it is still some sort of promise for the West Indies. I don't want to see us come here and in 3 days, the game is over. I want to see our players fight. I think that, the management knows, and maybe even the West Indies public know it's going to be difficult to beat Australia, the way they're playing cricket. But if we can show some fight, I believe that, I personally be very, very proud. Alec Martinez is somebody who I believe that, is going to come and show. I think he has the ability to perform in any conditions against, any sort of attack. So I'm looking forward to seeing him come up against the tough Australians. Young Chandrapal came across here 14 months ago and pretty much impressed everyone. He sort of leveled off a bit, but I still feel that he has the right approach to be a success. He loves challenges, and I'm looking forward to see if he can, sort of raise his game and show some sort of improvement from, his performances 40 months ago. So those are the two guys that I'd be looking for and hoping that they can truly come forward and sort of be firm structures in our batting lineup.
Big news in Australia yesterday with the selection of the Test squad. The opener to replace David Warne is the incumbent number 4, Steve Smith, who averages 58 in Test cricket, 43 in the last 12 or so months. It's a fresh challenge. How did you assess that decision? And what do you think a batsman in their mid-30s or edging towards their mid-30s can do? What can a new challenge do for a batsman?
Well, first of all, I'm almost sure that Steve Smith would have had a part to play in that decision. And, batting at number 3 is literally, you got to have the frame of mind that you can be out there in the first over. So I don't see it being a problem. I don't see it being like a number 6 or number 7 batsman getting to open when he's accustomed facing the ball when it's older. So I feel that he's got the technique. He definitely got the mental strength to do it. And I think that he's most likely going to be a success with it as well. A lot of other batters would be sort of disappointed that they didn't have the opportunity. But at mid-30s, I think that that decision is pretty much a decision that Steve Smith would have played a very significant part in. And I with the kind of player that he is, I don't see him failing at that position. Even though I'd like to see it in the first 2 Test matches.
Of course, of course. I was going to say, fellow Fox Sports expert, Fox cricket expert Michael Vaughan, who you would have had a lot to do with, obviously, in your career. He made the point that Steve was getting bounced a lot when he came out. Like they were certainly pitching it in short in the infancy of his innings, and he said he can probably get to 30 or 40 without having to face too many short pitch balls. Would that be your sort of thinking, or do you think that he might be targeted, straight away by the incoming West Indian quicks?
Well, I hope not, because the more you bang the ball into the wicket early up, it loses its shine very early. I think that it's an opportunity, of course, depending on the surface and the atmosphere, to use the new ball. Steve Smith, over the years, have been able to alter his technique, work on areas that he's been weak on. But generally, most batsmen have some form of weakness, and the new ball and coming out to bat is when the ball is at his strongest. So hopefully that's not one of the tactics that we're going to use early. I think that's counterproductive. I think we've got some wonderful bowlers that we can sort of explore and see how we can get the early players out.
We might move on to the topic I raised at the start, Brian, in terms of not necessarily the best bowlers that you face, but the bowlers who gave you the most trouble or you found the trickiest to face. How could you rate them from, say, 1 to 5?
Well, I think it goes hand in hand. If you're tricky to face, you're most likely the best bowlers that I've played against. The number 1 bowler for me that tricky, deceptive, and for me, maybe the best bowler that I've played against would be Akram. I think that he had what it took to make you look very silly, even if you're coming off scoring 400. Yes. I thought he had the ability to get you out. Tricky to face again, Glenn McGrath. His ability to be disciplined and find a line and stick there. A lot of other fast bowlers, you can throw them off their rhythm. Glenn McGrath was very difficult to do so. Muttiah Militaran and Shane Warne are 2 bowlers that I have great respect for. And for someone who understood how to play spin, each had their own sort of assets. I think Shane Warne mentally strong. I felt a lot lot of comfort against him. But somehow he grew in confidence. As my innings grew, he grew in confidence as well. And he was always able to produce something that was spectacular. I don't think Matai understood how much he confused me in the first half an hour, 45 minutes of my innings. But every time I got settled, things got a little bit easier with him. That would be my top four. I was very lucky not to have to face Curtly Ambrose and Malcolm Marshall, the late Malcolm Marshall, a lot. And but having the opportunity to do so in the nets, it was sufficient for me. And those two guys would round off my top five, top six.
Sounds positively frightening to me. We'll throw one more last question to you, Brian. It is the year of a World Cup being hosted for the first time by the United States, but obviously the premier hand is the West Indies. What are you looking forward to with the T20 World Cup in June?
Well, first of all, missing out on the T20 World Cup in Australia a couple of years ago, or 15, 16 months ago, plus also missing out on the 50 over World Cup just played in India. I think that as a West Indian supporter and as a West Indian myself, I believe that everybody is very anxious to see the team, and not because we are hosting it and we are now playing. We want to make sure that we are worthy in the World Cup. So I think a West Indies team performing well, getting into the playoffs, maybe the semis, it will be a good result. What else I want to see as a West Indian? I want to see a well-run World Cup. I think obviously we had that initial World Cup in 2007, and we are coming back again on the world stage. And I'm hoping that everything runs smoothly. Now June is the start of the rainy season, so I'm hoping that we do have great weather as well. But I'll be moving around and enjoying the World Cup, and I'm sure that a lot of foreigners and a lot of cricket lovers around the world who have been to the Caribbean and those who have not been to the Caribbean, they're going to join us to have a good time.
Look, I wanted to say thank you so much, Brian, for sharing your, I suppose, insights on your career, but also what's going on in cricket at the moment with the follow-on Fox Cricket's podcast. Remember, you can watch every ball of every game of the men's test between Australia and the West Indies in Adelaide and in Brisbane, live and ad break free during play, to stream on KO Sports and also watch on Foxtel. And we'll have Brian and other Fox Cricket experts from around the world giving their expertise and passing on their insights into cricket. Thank you so much for your time, Brian. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the follow-on.
Thank you for having me.